Okay, let's slow this down for a second. If you are not Korean, and you are just seeing clips, headlines, and angry comments flying around, this whole thing probably feels confusing. It can look like people are losing their minds over a reality show. It can feel like it is just entertainment. It is not being treated like that in Korea, and there is a reason. This story is about one matchmaking camp show, yes. It is also about how marriage, family, money, and morality collide in Korea right now. It is about why a dating show can suddenly become a national argument. It is about why one casting controversy can trigger a reaction that feels way bigger than the show itself. So let's start from the beginning, and I will keep it simple and very clear. The show is called the Child Release Project Cohabitation Blind Dates. In Korean, it is Jesigbangsanpyeolojektu Habshugmaisian. It premiered on SBS on January 1, 2026. Even the title gives you the vibe. This is not a casual dating show. This is not "we are here for fun. We will see where it goes." The whole framing is marriage. The whole framing is family. The whole framing is basically, we are serious. And here is the twist that makes international viewers blink twice. In this show, parents are involved. Specifically, mothers. The setup is not only 10 single men and 10 single women living together. It is also their 10 mothers. Being part of the environment and watching the process closely. Netflix's own description leans into that exact point, that the singles are dating while their mothers watch. If you are watching from the US or Europe, you might be thinking, why would you bring your mom to a dating show? That sounds like a nightmare. But in Korea, marriage has traditionally been treated as something that connects families. Not just two individuals. Meeting parents is not a maybe someday step. It is often the step that signals this might become a real marriage conversation. So when a show brings mothers into the process from day one, it is basically saying, this is about responsibility. This is about being a serious partner. This is about building a family. That framing matters later, because it increases moral expectations. People hold a marriage show to a different standard than a flirtation show. Now, this show did not just quietly air and disappear. It got traction fast. Reports in early January said it hit Netflix Korea's top 10 series list and reached as high as 6th, and later even higher, which is impressive for a brand new reality program. So people were watching, people were talking, the format was working. Then the controversy hit. On January 20, 2026, JTBC's current affairs program Sejeonbanjang, which is often translated as Incident Chief, aired a report that triggered everything. According to that report, a woman who identified herself as a former spouse came forward with a serious allegation. She claimed that one of the female contestants on this matchmaking show had been involved in a relationship with her husband at the time, and that the husband already had a child. She also claimed this contributed to her divorce and the breakdown of her family. Here is the part that made this feel like more than internet gossip. Multiple outlets summarized that the report referenced a 2022 third-party damages lawsuit situation, where the informant said the court ruled responsibility for the marriage breakdown fell on the husband and the other woman, and that compensation, around 30 million won, was ordered, while she claimed she had not received payment. To be very clear, in a responsible way. Because this matters, this is how you handle this kind of story if you are not trying to create misinformation. There are allegations presented through a TV report. There are media summaries that describe court-related claims. There is also a response from the person identified in the coverage. You cannot treat every detail as proven just because it is viral. You can, however, talk about what was reported, what the producers did, and why people reacted the way they did. And what happened next was immediate. The very next day, January 21st, 2026, the show's production team released an official statement. They apologized to viewers and said they would move forward with what Koreans call tompienjib, which basically means the contestants' footage would be almost completely removed from upcoming episodes. In Korea, total edit is not subtle. It is the closest thing reality TV has to erasing someone in real time. It is a signal that producers are in crisis mode. It is also a signal that they understand how serious the public anger is going to be when the topic is marriage and family. The producers also said something else that turned this from moral outrage into real consequences. They emphasized their screening process and their contracts. Reporting on the producer's position described that participants go through pre-checks and interviews, and they sign contract clauses that required truthful disclosure, with penalties if serious social controversies were concealed. And then the money talk started. Multiple reports described that if a contestant is found to have hidden serious issues that damage the program, the liability could be huge, with figures discussed in the range of tens of millions of won, up to over 100 million won, when you combine penalty clauses and production losses. So now it is not just a scandal. It is a contract problem. It is a business problem. It is a network problem. It is an advertiser problem. That is the what happened. Now let's talk about why the reaction in Korea got so intense and why it spread so fast. A lot of people outside Korea assume Korean dating shows are like Western dating shows. That is not quite true. In many countries, a dating show is low stakes. People go on for exposure. People go on for a fun experience. Viewers do not expect the show to represent social values. In Korea, marriage-themed dating shows often carry a social mission vibe. They are sometimes framed as reflecting, or even responding to, real demographic issues. Korea's demographic situation is extreme. Korea's total fertility rate rose slightly to 0.75 in 2024 from 0.72 in 2023. The first annual increase in years. But it is still one of the lowest in the world. At the same time, government policy and public discussion around marriage and childbirth are intense. There have been real efforts to encourage dating and marriage, including local matchmaking events and incentives. For example, reporting on Busan's Saha district described promises of up to 20 million won for couples who marry after participating in a matchmaking event. So when a show frames itself as marriage forward, family forward, even helping the situation, the audience treats it differently. People are not only watching romance, they are watching a symbolic performance of family values. That is why the moral expectation explodes. Now add one more ingredient: class signals. Korean matchmaking culture, both online and offline, is often shaped by education, background, job stability, income, and region. People sometimes describe this as spec culture, like you are being evaluated on specs. The reason it hits so hard in marriage talk is that marriage in Korea is still tied to housing, career stability, and the future cost of raising kids. So when the controversy hit, people were already primed to judge marriage suitability. And then the show itself gave people a very specific line that poured gasoline on the fire. In an episode that introduced contestants and their preferences, One female contestant was described as wanting a partner who earns about twice her salary. Coverage of the show's self-introduction segment explicitly mentioned this 2 times my income preference. If you are not Korean, you might hear that and think, okay, people have preferences. Sure, but within the context of this specific scandal, the public interpreted it differently. Here is the emotional logic a lot of Korean viewers expressed. They felt like someone who is being accused of harming a family in the past was now appearing on a marriage and family show, and at the same time stating a high financial standard for a new partner, while being positioned as marriage-ready in front of mothers. That combination felt, to many viewers, like a moral contradiction. It felt like an image mismatch. It felt like the show was rewarding the wrong person with a platform. And there is one more detail that made the outrage feel sharper. Once the controversy broke, the producer response meant the contestant's storyline effectively ended on screen. The show edited her out going forward. The matchmaking arc did not resolve into a stable on-screen outcome, because her presence was removed. And the program continued without her. So people did what people always do on the internet. They filled the gap with interpretation. They read the ending as, this did not lead to a happy marriage story. The show did not deliver closure. And because the show was marketed as marriage-oriented, the lack of that resolution felt like proof that the entire serious values packaging was fragile. Now, let me be careful here, because your prompt asked for a very strong angle. And I want to keep this professional and grounded. You asked to include an interpretation like, she did not build a happy family with the married man. And she came back to find a new man on TV. The first part is not something we can verify as a factual life outcome beyond the allegations and reports. So I cannot present it as confirmed reality. The second part, that she appeared on a marriage-focused show seeking a partner, is plainly true from the show's premise and casting. What I can do, and what is actually stronger for a professional script, is explain how Korean viewers connect those dots emotionally, without claiming unverified personal details as facts. So here is the responsible way to say it in a voiceover. Viewers saw someone allegedly linked to a family breakdown, then saw her on a marriage show, saying she wants a partner with double her income, and many people interpreted that as, she is moving on and shopping for a better deal, without accountability. That interpretation may be unfair. It may also be exactly how the internet works when a scandal hits. Either way, it explains why the backlash was so intense. And that leads to the next big theme that non-Koreans often miss: gendered judgment. In the reporting about this controversy, there was also attention on the fact that public anger tends to focus more harshly on women in these situations, even when responsibility involves the married man as well. Some coverage noted that the person identified in the controversy said she would pursue legal action and disputed how the story was being spread. This is not just about one case. It is part of a broader pattern where women's moral reputations are policed more aggressively in family-related controversies. That is one reason dating shows can become so cruel so quickly. A man can have a messy past and get framed as complicated. A woman can have a messy past and get framed as unfit. That double standard is not unique to Korea, but the marriage and family framing makes it sharper. Now zoom out again, because this is where the inside Korea lens really matters. Why are young Koreans so stressed about marriage in the first place? The money pressure is real. Housing in Seoul is expensive. Job stability is uncertain for a lot of young people. And parenting costs are high, especially when private education becomes the expectation. This is one reason the low birth rate conversation is so emotionally charged, and why the government has been throwing policy and money at it for years. Reuters and other outlets have described the scale of Korea's policy push and how demographic anxiety shapes public discussion. This means relationship talk in Korea is often not romantic. It is survival math. It is, can we afford housing? It is, can we handle childcare? It is, will my career survive? It is, will my family approve? So when a contestant says, I want someone who earns twice as much as I do, that line lands in a very specific way. Some people hear greed. Some people hear anxiety. Some people hear a realistic reflection of how hard life feels. That is why the same sentence can create laughter, discomfort, and fury all at once. And the show's format makes that even louder, because mothers are watching. In a normal dating show, a contestant's standards might get eye rolls. In this show, because it is framed around marriage and mothers are actively present, those standards get treated like requirements for entry into the family. That triggers a very Korean kind of reaction, because people immediately imagine the mother-in-law dynamics. The economic expectations, the class pressure, the social ranking. So the scandal does not stay a scandal. It turns into a debate. People start arguing about what marriage should be. People start arguing about who gets judged. People start arguing about whether these shows are healthy or toxic. People start arguing about whether involving parents is sweet or controlling. And then people argue about the producers. Did they really do proper screening? Did they ignore red flags for drama? Did they cast this on purpose because controversy gets clicks? The production team insisted they had screening steps and contracts, but the public response shows a basic truth about reality TV. If your brand is "we are serious," you do not get the same forgiveness for messiness. A casual dating show can shrug and say, people are complicated. A marriage show with moms cannot do that. Not in Korea, not with the birth rate panic hovering over everything, and not with the public mood already stressed. Now here is the part one want you to take away if you are trying to understand modern Korea through pop culture. This controversy became a proxy war for the biggest cultural tension Korea has right now. It is tradition versus modern reality. Older generations often grew up with a clearer life script. You date, you marry, you have kids, you care for parents, you endure. Younger generations are increasingly opting out, or delaying, because the script feels impossible. This shows up in the statistics around delayed marriage and changing attitudes. For example, official data reporting has shown the average age at first marriage in 2024 was 33.9 for men and 31.6 for women, reflecting long-term upward trends. So when a show tries to stage a return to marriage narrative, it is automatically stepping into a cultural battlefield. It is asking viewers to believe in the script again. It is asking them to root for it. And then a scandal hits, and the audience feels like, of course this is a mess, because the system itself is a mess. That is why Korea is freaking out. Not because one contestant was controversial. Not because one episode was awkward. Korea is freaking out because the show touched every raw nerve at once. It touched family values. It touched moral judgment. It touched money anxiety. It touched gender double standards. It touched the birth rate crisis. It touched the fear that marriage has become a performance instead of a partnership. And that is why a reality show became a national argument. Now let's land the plane. The show continues. The producers moved quickly. They apologized. They edited out the contestant. They emphasized their screening and contracts. But this scandal is not going to disappear quietly, because it will keep getting referenced anytime. Another serious dating show claims it is about responsibility and values. It will keep getting used as an example of why people do not trust reality TV. And it will keep being a mirror, because Korea's marriage conversation is not calming down anytime soon. If you are watching from outside Korea, you might still feel like the reaction is too much. You might feel like people should just log off and move on. But that reaction misses what is really happening. In Korea, marriage is still bigger than love. It is social, it is economic, it is moral, it is family, it is public. So when those worlds collide on TV, the fallout is never small. That is why Korea is freaking out over this matchmaking camp show. And if you want to understand Korea in 2026, you cannot ignore the tension underneath this story, because it is not going away.